it was truly one of the most irrational acts I've seen it in a democracy in my lifetime for so many voters who are like, I know they're all, I call them dummies and everything, but if you just were to meet them and talk to them, they're relatively intelligent people. They're every bit as smart as I am. Okay. I'm not saying I'm smarter than any of them. It's just that I recognize how irrational they are. You know, you could say, well, Ben, you're irrational too. You keep voting for a socialist dream that's never going to happen in your lifetime. Okay, I admit that. But I don't proclaim to be a socialist and then vote for candidates who are absolutely adamant against what I want. You get what I'm saying? And yet I watched Americans do this. So I'm going to quote you to you. I've been actually quoting you a lot on this point. I don't have a lot of confidence in America's ability to get out of this situation because it was American voters who put us in this situation, David Faris. And I'm quoting you, paraphrasing what you said about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Am I being unfair to the voters of America?
I mean, it's like the French foreign minister went out the other day and he was like, look, man, we can't have European security resting on like what the voters of Wisconsin want to do every 4 years, man. We can't live like that, right? And there's like the American electorate made a choice here, right? Like they had all the information that they needed to make this choice. This guy has already been president. You know what I mean? Like you would had close to 10 years of watching Donald Trump's behavior in public. You had 4 years of him being the president. You watched him like early on in the COVID pandemic, like act like a complete maniac in ways that destroyed his own re-election chances and got like hundreds of thousands of people, including many of his own supporters, directly killed. And you came back, you watched him try to overthrow the American system of government. You watched him for years promise retribution against his enemies. You watched him for years saying he was going to do like a huge tariff thing. And you voted for him anyway, because you saw what you wanted to see. Because you were upset with the way things were. And like, as long as Americans are willing to punish the party in power when they're unhappy, regardless of what the opposition is saying or doing or believes, even when that opposition is like deeply and openly authoritarian, as long as the American electorate is like, well, I'm like a little bit annoyed with the Democrats, so let's go with the fascists. No one can trust us, and I don't trust us. Yeah. You know, like I don't trust Americans to pull us out of this. That said,
you don't have a lot of choice.
We don't have a lot of choice. And right now we're in the situation where it's like the electorate's going to be super annoyed with the party in power and they're going to put Democrats back in. Kind of what, like, I don't think it really even matters really what Democrats do or say over the next 18 months, to be honest with you. Like there's going to be a thermostatic reaction to this. Like there's no question in my mind that we will retake the House if the elections are free and fair. I think a lot of Republican Senate seats in places like North Carolina will be deeply in jeopardy if they don't walk some of this stuff back and then like reestablish stability. They still have time to be like, well, that didn't work. And just like walk it all back. Like that's actually, I think there's a really good chance that he's going to end up walking a lot of this stuff back in the next couple of months. And if he does that, he undoes some of the like direct damage, avoids an open trade war with our allies and our, like everybody in the international trading system. And he just starts governing like a normal Republican, puts Elon Musk in a desk or something and like shuts the, like locks it. If he does some of that stuff, there's still time for them to win or not get like absolutely clobbered in 2026. But that's going to require them to like separate themselves from whatever, like the grip of whatever delusion they are in about what they think they're doing and what the outcome of what they think they're doing is going to be. Until they free themselves of that delusion, they're walking directly into an electoral buzzsaw next year. And the more I watch Trump and the more I see his advisors, like there's no one left in the room to tell him the truth.
Yeah.
Like in the first term, a very consistent dynamic in the first term is that Trump would be like, what happens if I push that button? And like some serious person who's been in politics for a long time would be like, oh, that's the destroy everything button. Like you don't want to press that one. That would be really bad. And he'd be like, well, why? Like, why can't I nuke the hurricane? Like, why can't we just pull out of NATO? Why? And they'd be like, well, because like a variety of like terrible things would follow that. And they would be blamed on you. And so, maybe think about don't doing that. Those people are gone. And they've been replaced by like the stupidest people on the face of the earth. People who are not just stupid, but like venal and corrupt, and incapable of learning things. Like they're incurious, right? They have like a child's understanding of international trade. They think that they can move mountains that they cannot move. And I'm not convinced that there's anybody in the White House willing to sit down and be like, well, it seems like we tanked the stock market by 20%. It's probably going to be a recession inbound. People are getting really angry at us. Like, maybe we should stop what we're doing. I don't know that there's anybody to do that, you know? And so if they don't change course, and I'm not confident, I don't really know. I can't predict the future. But if they don't change course here, they're going to get clobbered next year. Like, there's no question in my mind.
Well, by the way, Donald Trump is perfectly capable of next week announcing that all the tariffs are gone and making up some reason why he did it. And, you know, Fox News will call him brilliant and a genius, and the markets will rebound. So, yeah, we could be having a completely different conversation in 2 weeks, which won't make any of what we've gone through any less insane. I would just like to point that out. And I also like to put one other thing. There are people out there, a lot of them, who make a fortune out of trying to strategize their investments based on what government does. So you sell this stock, you buy that stock, you sell that bond, buy that bond, et cetera, and so forth, based on what government's doing, with an anticipation that it will have an impact on the economy in such a way that if you buy this stock, the price is low now, it'll go up. There are people, they got computers and algorithms that figure this stuff out. So it's not even like a guy with a piece of paper anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's not Warren Buffett writing on the back of an envelope. And I'm like, what are these guys? Good luck feeding this, trying to figure this stuff out, because the lunatics are in charge. All right, you mentioned Wisconsin and why you and the French politician don't want the future of the world to depend on Wisconsin. Now, I'm just going to point something out to you, and then I'd love to hear your riff on this. So the state of Wisconsin, I've now said this a couple times in the show, so listeners have heard this before. And 3 pivotal elections. Boom, boom, boom. Before Musk and after Musk. So let's neutralize Musk's impact. They had a special election to elect a Supreme Court judge. I don't know if it was a special. They had an election to elect Supreme Court judge about 3 years ago. The liberal clobbered the MAGA guy. And they kept a liberal, or they took control of the court. All right? That was in like 2002 or 3. I can't remember. Dates are all coming together. 2004, they have a presidential election. They elected, essentially, given the same choice between a MAGA lunatic and a liberal woman, they went with the MAGA lunatic. Okay? So they flipped 10 percentage points right there. Fast forward to this week, a MAGA lunatic versus a liberal woman, back to a 10-point lead for Wisconsin. Oh, for the Dems in Wisconsin. And Democrats everywhere. Thank freaking God. Okay, I think the voters of Wisconsin, and I appreciate the outcome, are as insane as Donald Trump. You can't explain you cannot explain that. You cannot explain how you voted, Wisconsin cheeseheads, against what you believe in so dramatically in 2004. There is no logical, rational explanation for it. That's how I see it. So it just underscores the point you're making, David, how fickle and weird the American electorate is, and how scary and fragile our security is if we're depending on them. That's my read of what went down in Wisconsin. Love to hear your response. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a very real extent to which I don't think it's just Wisconsin. I think American voters generally are unpredictable, like in terms of like, oh, how are they going to react to a particular piece of news? But like, they're very predictable in the sense that like they punish the party in power when things go wrong. And regardless really of whether the party in power is responsible for it or not. right? Well, it was like directly their fault. Like in this, like, inflation was not Joe Biden's fault, right? But we were holding the bag for it and we got punished for it. What has kept everything together for the last 100 years is that the two parties are both like run by normal, sane people who are invested in the system in which they're operating. And what happened over the course of the 2010s is that the Republican Party of the United States, which I think is the most dangerous organization in the world at this point, the Republican Party of the United States became what we call in political science an anti-system party. And an anti-system party is a party that doesn't want to just change the government, they want to change the regime itself. And like there's something fundamental about the rules of the game, the regime that they want to change or overthrow, and come into power as reactionary sort of revolutionaries. And the American people have not been able to pick up on that signal and respond to it accordingly. What has happened instead, like as the Republican Party has descended into this authoritarian madness, is that they've taken most of their own voters with them on this trip. And so we now in the United States have a voting bloc of like upwards of close to 50% that is either in the cult or willing to vote for the cult when it suits them and when it's convenient for them. And so if you're France, if you're Canada, if you're Mexico, I said this on the show a few weeks ago, you simply cannot trust that after the backlash to Trump and the Republicans, that they won't just put them right back into power. I remember being, about 15, 16 years ago, I was primarily studying the Middle East. Okay, so I wasn't paying as much attention to American politics as I do now. And I remember just being flabbergasted that the American people put Republicans back in power in 2010. You know what I mean? Like the meltdown of the Great Recession, the Iraq War, like all of these horrendous things that the Bush administration did, like just obviously set the country on a much worse path than it would have been otherwise if we had elected Al Gore in 2000. They took all of that in, worst economic crisis of our generation, still living with a lot of those consequences. And Republicans weren't, it's like, they weren't even as directly as responsible as they are now for what's happening. But the American people were like, let's just give them another shot. Like, I don't know this Barry guy, Obama, I don't like this like black guy doing this stuff. So let's just put Republicans back in control of Congress. I couldn't believe it. I was like, we only have 18 months. That's it. Right. You gave us 18 months to clean up this mess that we were left. And then you just put these guys right back into power. And over and over and over again, just didn't matter what they did, what procedural escalation, the Supreme Court stuff, Merrick Garland, all the government shutdowns and the budget standoffs over the debt ceiling and the increasing role of like total lunatics in our politics, like Laura Loomer having control of the National Security Council, like, and through all of these, like, I think just increasingly patently absurd developments, where one of the two political parties in America has just been captured by total nutcases with an authoritarian and cruelty streak like 10 miles wide, and they keep voting for them. And so I can't blame our allies and our friends in the world for concluding that we simply can't be trusted. And we can't. So in the short term, I'm fairly confident that there is going to be a normal political backlash. It manifested in Wisconsin, right? But as you noted, Wisconsin just keeps flipping back and forth over and over again, right? There doesn't seem to be anything that MAGA can do to convince the people of Wisconsin that the Republican Party itself is the problem. And this is why I've been banging on for like years and years and years about how Democrats need to stop talking about like, America needs a strong Republican Party. Like, this is the party of Reagan. Like, I can't believe this is happening anymore. And start saying what is actually true, which is like, hello, electorate, you cannot trust the Republican Party of the United States. Yeah. The Republican Party of the United States is a dangerous extremist organization run by dangerous extremist lunatics. You have to stop putting them into power. And you have to stop talking about them like you expect normalcy to come back around the corner tomorrow morning. It's just not going to happen. So, yeah, I was happy. Obviously, everybody was happy about what happened in Wisconsin. It means a lot of good things for Wisconsin elections, but gerrymandering the House, it's a great signal that there is a huge thermostatic backlash developing against Trump and the Republicans. But at this point, like, we've seen this movie so many times that like I can't even really get that excited about taking Congress back in 2026 because I just don't see the path to breaking that fever, to breaking that grip on the party. If it takes like a world historical calamity I don't want it. You know, like I don't want to have to go through a Great Depression for people to like realize that Republicans are nuts. You know, I don't want to have to like watch my 401k get vaporized so that Trump can lose the next election. Like I want people to pay attention. Stop putting these people into power.
Yeah.
No.